And if only I unmuted. Hey everybody, so today we're going to do an initial setup of FileWave. This is going to be a bit of an experiment in making short videos on specific topics, and this is for somebody that has Community Edition, or if you're going to set up an on-premise server. In particular, I'm going to show the very beginning part. You can set up FileWave on obviously Mac OS. You can set it up on Debian. We have a Debian appliance to make it really easy to add to Hyper-V and VMware and anything that supports those image formats. So I'm going to do this in a standalone Debian install, which is more complicated than doing a VMware import or Hyper-V import. So I'll just set it up. You'll see it'll be super quick. We'll run through some of the initial things that you might do. And then I'll make follow-up videos that are on specific topics, like setting up Chromebooks, setting up Apple devices to check in, setting up Windows devices to check in. So let's get started with the things that you would have to do if you were just starting from scratch. And the QR code here goes to our event calendar. We have events published, so you can come to them here on YouTube. You can join our Discord. At the very end, I'll put a QR code for our Discord. Great place to ask questions. So hopefully this video is helpful to some folks if you are nervous about how complicated it is to set up. So, and I guess one other thing is, I said Mac OS, I said Debian. We also do a hosted environment. So let's say you just don't want to take care of a server. You can do our SaaS offering, and you could pay to have us run the server. It's pretty reasonable, and then you don't have to back up the server. You don't have to upgrade the server. Really nothing, and much easier. But this is for those that require an on-premise installation. So let's get started. So I'm going to do this in Linode. You can do this in AWS. You can do it in anything. You could do it technically in a local copy of VirtualBox. But this is going to be a server, and I want things on the internet to be able to get to it. So an environment like Linode is pretty reasonable. And so you can see I only have one VM. It's not going to be part of this. I'm going to create a server, and you're going to see just how quickly we could get FileWave up and running from nothing. So let's put it in Newark, New Jersey. We're going to say Debian. Now, you have a few choices for Debian. Really important, as of October 2025, you need to pick Debian 12. When we first went to Debian from CentOS, we went to Debian 12. Debian 13 has since come out. Debian 12 still has a lot of life left in it. 13 is very new. We're working on adjustments to accommodate for 13. And so when we are compatible, or when we certify Debian 13, then you're going to see that our appliances will be published on Debian 13, and you'll see that you'll just be able to upgrade. And an in-place upgrade from 12 to 13 is pretty easy. So I'm going to pick Debian 12. I'm going to pick a certain amount of memory. So I'm going to do a dedicated CPU. Now I'm going to do a shared CPU, and I'm going to do 16 gigs of RAM. So now when you think about this, for CPU and memory, you're not really going to want to go below 8 gigs. You probably want at least 16 gigs of RAM. And then think about also in something like Linode that storage comes hand in hand with that. So you want to think about, what are you managing? If you're managing iPads, there's almost no storage used. If you're managing Windows systems and you're pushing out Creative Suite installers or Mac OS systems, same thing. You're going to want to think about the size of your data. And I believe in Linode you can expand the disk. You can pay for more disk, but you may just want to make things easier for yourself and just start off with, the right thing. It'll tell you, what it costs you to run. And so I'm going to create this for the purposes of this example. Dedicated CPU obviously will perform better. Shared CPU is lower in cost. So that is really up to your budget and what you want to do. And I'm going to call this YouTube as a label. And I'm going to set a password. And that's so that I can remote into it. Now, in Linode, they offer things like you can have a specific SSH key go into it to make it really easy to remote into it with credentials that you created. Encrypting the disk. I'm going to not encrypt it for this example. In production, it's probably good to encrypt the disk. Firewall. Now, if you're just setting up a couple of servers in Linode, you may not create firewalls in AWS or Linode. You may have no desire. But if you're building out like a whole environment, you may want to create a firewall for it. I'm not going to go through that because that's more of a Linode specific thing or an AWS specific thing. But if you're curious about what ports, if I go to our knowledge base and I look for TCP, there is an article, and this part of it talks about server ports, so that you can see what ports need to be open. And you're specifically looking for incoming, because usually when you're making this firewall, you're thinking more about what can get to the server. So all the incoming ports have to be open. If you were restricting outbound traffic, then you have to consider outbound too. But for a lot of people, they're just really considering inbound traffic. So you're going to want to open up all those incoming ports to the server that are listed. Okay, so then moving on, we're going to not enable backups in this case, just because I'm doing a demo, but you definitely want backups. If you're running this yourself in Linode, you definitely want backups of the server. And then private IP, that's up to you, up to your usage of Linode. So then I create the server. The server's spinning up. It's getting an IP address as it gets created. So I'm going to copy this IP address because this is going to be my FileWave server. I'm going to want to give it a name. And it happens that I also manage my DNS in Linode. So if I go to domains, I have some, lab domains that I use. So let's use jnux.net, right? We'll go in there. We'll add an A record. It's called, and we're going to call it FileWave. And we're going to paste that IP in. We're going to hit save. That just makes so that when I go to filewave.jnux.net, it'll go to that IP address. So that will make it much easier. We're also going to do something to get an SSL certificate to make all the communications secure. So at first, we have filewave.jnux.net. And if I go back to Linodes, I have this YouTube one running. I can SSH to it. So I'm going to open up something called Lish console. This is a terminal console. It's not really SSHing in. So this is me connected to the Linux box, right? And if I do IPA, there's my IP address. And if I ping it, I'm going to ping myself because I have a DNS entry. So as of now, I have an operating system running. I don't yet have FileWave installed. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the host file. I'm putting in so that the loopback address also goes to the server. So if I ping filewave.jnox.net, it actually pings on the loopback. That makes it just so that it doesn't have to really go over networking to get to itself. It will work out better and faster for FileWave if it just knows that itself is that. And also if DNS resolution is not working, the server can still talk to itself. So that can be important. So let's get FileWave installed because that's sort of our next step. So in the knowledge base, kb.filewave.com, I'm going to go to downloads. I'm going to go to 16.2.1, which is the current version. I'm going to scroll down to Debian, and I am going to, now you could grab the .deb file for FileWave Server, but I'm going to use this one-liner that we have that's good for upgrading. It can also do the initial install. So I'm going to paste that in. It's going to download a script, and that script is going to do a couple of things like OS upgrades. It's going to install some tools that we need, dependencies for FileWave. And so you should see in a minute or two that FileWave itself is installed. This part is a little boring, but it is a good idea to use that one-liner because it will do things like apt upgrade and apt update so that you get all the updated packages. When you run your own Debian instance, it's really important to apply OS updates. And the upgrade script does check if the OS itself is upgraded. And now it's at the point it did all the OS updates. So that first part will kind of depend on how unpatched your system is. That was a brand new Debian 12 system. And you can see FileWave Server is now installing. Now, what it's doing at this point, if you're wondering why it appears hung, it's not hung. It's installing Postgres database. It's installing Grafana. It's installing FileWave Server itself. And you can see now it's kind of moved on. It's setting some parameters for the OS. It's making sure that the local firewall ports are open correctly in case you're using the firewall that's included with Debian, UFW. While that is finishing, because that'll just take another minute, when you are done installing, um, you're going to want to make sure that there's an SSL certificate, for instance. Oh, there it was. So for a Debian instance that you're running yourself, you certainly could update the SSL certificate right in the FileWave Central Administrator. You could upload a certificate, but Let's Encrypt is good. It's free, so I am going to right-click and copy the link address for this script. And then as soon as this is done, I'm going to apply it, and then we'll have an SSL cert so that things can be protected. And so let's just give that another minute to cook. Now you'll see at the end it'll mention that it's going to reboot the system in 15 seconds. That's good to do because we applied a lot of OS updates. There's a log file from this one-liner update script that it always writes to, that it mentions, that you can look at to see if anything didn't go well. But now the OS is rebooting, FileWave is kind of fully installed. Okay, and this is the Lish console. It's not that we're back into the server. We'll give it just a second for the server to come back online. It's not up yet. Let's give it. And you can see the status is offline. There we go. Now it's running. That's it booting up. Okay. So now FileWave is installed and running. We don't have an SSL cert, but let's just prove that it's running. So you can see it says not secure. And then I believe browsers make it harder and harder to bypass that, but we don't really need to. We know from the certificate that it's getting to it, but it's not secure. So although it says connection refused. So let's ignore that for a second. We're going to prove that this works by going into FileWave admin. Can't confirm the identity. That is totally fine. That's because the SSL certificate, we didn't do the step of doing the SSL certificate. But here's the admin from my other screen. And when I log in, I get a pop-up about 16.1.1. Now you may wonder, why did I get that? Because 16.2.1 is what we installed. Well, if you're a new customer, you may be curious about what was in 16.1.1. And so if I dismiss that, then you're going to get the notice about 16.2.1 so that you can just be up to date. We just show the past couple of versions. So when you do an install, you might see 2 versions behind to see like what new things came out. But you can see FileWave's running, and we're 21 minutes into the video, and even with all my explaining, the server's running. Of course, the server does not have a valid SSL certificate, so that's going to be, a problem. But let's deal with that. Let's see if wget is here. I'm going to get that script. That's what I copied from that knowledge base article. I'm just going to rename it because from the knowledge base I got it as this 413. I'm going to make it executable. I'm going to run it. Oh, look, I have to do install. And then it wants the name. So that's filewave.jnux.net. I'm going to do Josh Levitsky, filewave.com. Yes, that's correct. It's going to install what's needed for Let's Encrypt. It's then going to do a thing where Let's Encrypt tries to talk to the server to prove, who it is. And since there's a DNS record, and I control jnux.net, it trusts that this is really a jnux.net server because there's a DNS entry. And based on that, it'll issue a certificate. So now it's requesting the certificate. It's restarting FileWave because when you update the certificate, it just all works out better if it restarts. And in fact, every 90 days, it will renew the certificate automatically through a cron job. And when it does that renewal, it will restart the server as part of that process. But now I don't have to buy an SSL certificate, and we should see that the server is good. So let's see if we can't prove that. And I know one of the things I did. You have to go to HTTPS. So here's the server. The default password when you first log in is just FileWave. It's in our knowledge base, but test. I'm not setting up today Okta, Entra, Google, or Keycloak. That might be a nice video for later, but know that we support those for single sign-on and for when devices enroll, knowing who enrolled the device. We can also set up to work with Apple. I'm just going to finalize setup. This is our web admin, which is called Anywhere, and this will look very similar to this. Now it says, the server did restart, which is why that dropped out, but I'm going to relaunch it and relog in. And it says it's already logged in. That's fine because I'm logged in through Anywhere. And you'll see that this looks they look very similar. That's because they are. So Central has pretty much everything you need. Anywhere is for when you're out and about and you need to get in and you don't maybe have the admin installed somewhere or you're on a tablet. It has a reduced feature set, but it's really great for being able to get in from anywhere. So server's fully running. We could enroll a client. I might spin up a Windows VM real quick to show that we can enroll a client. Let's see. But let's talk about some other setup stuff. So DNS entry, I have the server running. I can log into it. Now, I can log into it with a password of FileWave. So that's really not good because anyone could guess that's your password. So if you go to Manage Administrators, you'll see that you can manage the users. You can either do internal accounts, and fwadmin's like a default first account. I'm going to set the password so that nobody, breaks into my server. I'm going to apply that. So now, my password is now different, which is a good first step to do. You can create additional administrators. So I could create a local account and I could say Bob, and then I would set a password for Bob. When I make other people, so fwadmin can do everything. When I make other people, I'm going to think about what I want Bob to be able to do. The same thing would be true if you were to create, if you set up like Entra or Okta, and you were to add an IDP group account. So let's say I was to set up Entra, and I say that my group in Entra called administrators is able to log in to FileWave. I would create a group account here and set the permissions for that group. And maybe I have a couple of classes of administrators, some that are more trusted than others. Then I could make multiple IDP groups and define whatever permissions I want. Now for this demo, I'm just going to select all and give them everything. Each user also can specifically manage Apple VPP tokens. You can make it so that they're visible to multiple users. We didn't set up anything Apple-wise yet. Application tokens. So this is how you can use our API. So to talk to the server. Of course, this is compromised because it's in a YouTube video, but the server won't exist at the end of the video. So this would be your token to be able to do API calls. And this token can do whatever the user account it's tied to is able to do. So maybe you want to do some API tie-in, like Incident IQ is a ticketing system. They have a built-in integration with us. And so maybe you make a service account that can do only the things that you want Incident IQ to be able to do. We also have TeamViewer integration. So let's say I wanted, Bob and Jane to be able to do TeamViewer for remote control. I could add them here. Now you'll notice that it says 0 licenses. That's because when you first set up FileWave, there's not a real license in it. It will let you enroll 5 devices, 5 computers, 5 tablets, 5 Chromebooks, but it won't let you do things like TeamViewer. So if you have Community Edition, you don't get TeamViewer as part of that. But if you have any paid version of FileWave, you would have TeamViewer licenses, and you can assign people to be able to do it for remote control. And we can remote control all of the platforms we support: Chromebooks, Android, Windows, Mac, iPad. So it is pretty powerful and included. And so why don't we take care of the license? Because if you were to be setting this up and you were going to have a paid version or even Community Edition, you'd want to apply your license to it. So I'm going to I hit apply there. I'm going to hit OK. Let's go and deal with licensing. So on my other screen, I'm going to go and fetch a license key. And I will probably create one for this since it will be visible, that I can delete later. And I'm going to make it education. Don't worry that you can't see what I'm doing. It's nothing that you'd have to do because it's for license creation. And I'm going to save it. Save it. And then I'm going to copy this key. Copy. Now to insert your key, or if you ever have, you maybe have a certain license, you buy more clients, you go to the server and then activation code. You can see it's an evaluation edition. I'm going to paste in that key that I made, get rid of the space, hit OK, and then boom, it's licensed. So I am going to finish. So now, if I go back to Manage Administrators and I go to TeamViewer, you can see that I could say that Bob can do TeamViewer. And it's important if you're doing IDP integrated logins that each IDP user that you want to be able to do TeamViewer, that you have their username. And sometimes people can get confused about what their username should be. The easiest way is if somebody logs in, you could show current online administrators and you would see, if Bob was logged in, you would be able to see what the username is that shows up, whether it's his email address or just Bob. So that would be an easy way to double check. Now on the back end, I think I'll delete that license, so it's not valid anymore. Okay, so that is no more. So, but my server will still be licensed because it won't check in just yet about that. So we have license. What else could we do? When you come into FileWave, things are a bit empty, right? So file sets is a bit empty, deployments is a bit empty. If I make this bigger, you will see that we have some sample queries. Now that's in this version. In the next version, these actually won't be included here. They will be included in assistance content packs. So content packs was something that we thought of so that we could publish, or we could publish basically groups, smart groups, queries, dashboards, things to make it really easy. Because if it starts out so blank, you might struggle with what you would think to report on. So, for instance, if I want to do TeamViewer, and I manage Android, macOS, Windows, and I also want the reports and dashboard. So I'm going to import, I'm actually going to import just Android and reports and dashboard because the Mac and Windows installers are bigger. So for this demo, I just want it to go quick. And I know that that can happen. If I just pick that, that's something that I'm working on, but if I was to import, let's say, also the MDM command history, that could be helpful if you're managing Apple stuff. But this one's more generic. FileWave overview. I'm going to import that one. Oh, I know why. So this is actually good that it happened. So when I went to import it, there was an error because I've never done a model update. So I have this new server running. The model number is 0. So you don't know this if you've never used FileWave, but the model number is like like a revision number. And when it's at 0, nothing's been done. We haven't brought in any clients. We haven't created any groups. So when I tried to do the content pack, that was a problem. So watch, I'm going to do a model update so that there is a model. Now we're on model number 1, and then we'll go back. Let's go back to content packs, and let's see if we have better luck with FileWave overview. Hey, look, so it already exists. Let's overwrite that. So let's test out why that is. Oh, I could do it on here. I'm using my new password, and I did get in. Let's go to dashboard, and that is why. Okay, so when you first set up FileWave, the Grafana dashboard, it thinks that the server name is localhost, and it's usually not until there is something in here that it corrects itself. For the normal person, this wouldn't matter because you would definitely enroll a client as you got started. So I'm going to make a placeholder to cheat. Placeholder is like, I know I'm going to enroll a device. I want to put it in some smart groups originally. I want to, well, put it in some static groups rather, and assign content to it. And for a Windows machine, you would put the MAC address of the network adapter that's going to talk to the server. For a Mac, you would put the serial number. So I'm going to put a dummy value in. And we're going to see if we have luck with that. Live demos. That always happens. So in this case, Grafana thinks that localhost is its address. So I'm going to... There was one other thing that I tend to do on servers, and I believe that this would address it. And maybe I'll put a note earlier in the video at the point where we edited the host file. So one second while I just get what that file is. That is, I know what it is. This was my being silly. So if I go to the mobile tab, now you'll see that this is already set to filewave.jnx.net. I cheated a little bit because we set up the server. I never really went through preferences. And so I might rethink this and re-record this video, but that's good because somebody will inevitably run into this. So let's see if I'm right. So I come here, I have the host name, it's already correct. I hit OK. Hitting OK on this dialog. So this is an important step when you do like a server migration, because it also sets the value of that server name for Grafana. You have to hit OK, and then the next thing that you want to do is a model update. And if I'm correct, then this will be fine now. And I'm correct. So that is an important step. And it's good that we did this together, because that was an important thing. Now, if you had taken a different path than I did Let's Encrypt. If you had taken a different path and gone to upload your own certificate in the UI, you probably wouldn't have run into that. But if you do run into that, it's super easy. You just go to the mobile tab, make sure this is correct. You should see a green light because it can talk to itself. You just hit OK and model update and you're fine. So at this point, we can do content packs. So if I go to content packs, and I go to FileWave Overview and I import, it'll complain that there are conflicts. That's fine because it kind of partially was able to do it before, but now we get success. So that is great. So that's the FileWave Overview one. And let's do the TeamViewer one. And let's do this. We're going to overwrite. We're going to bring this in. And look, now it's successful. So not so bad. And if I go to inventory queries, you will see that there are now reports created from content packs. So I said these samples won't exist in 16.3, which will release sometime around the beginning of 2026. But instead, what will happen is you'll come in here, this will be empty, and it will direct you to go to content packs. And you'll import what we'll call sample reports. We're going to use the word reports instead of queries because it'll make more sense to people, especially new people. So you can see that I ended up with these queries. Now, I don't have any real devices enrolled yet, but these queries would be populated with data if you enroll devices. And these reports are used for dashboards that also got imported. So let's see what all got imported. So in file sets, I had picked Android. and so Android file sets were created. I don't have Apple set up yet, so that may be why I don't have I have to think about what I checked. But yeah, I didn't check Mac or Windows because I said they were larger, so it didn't create them. But TeamViewer got created because for Android, because I picked Android. And if I go to clients, there's my placeholder I made. If I go to deployments, you can see there's this one and then there's original. That's just because we ran it twice, but I can get rid of that. It doesn't matter. So this deployment is called Android TeamViewer. It includes the file sets for it. And so I could assign this to devices if I enroll Android devices. Associations, you can see here. And associations and deployments, if you're new to FileWave, they're basically the same thing. And the thing of it is, if you're new, you probably want to uncheck this so that you don't see associations anymore. Why learn about it when it's going to be leaving? So associations is now hidden. There's no reason to see it. It did basically what deployments does, but deployments does a bit more. So eventually associations will get phased out. So now we're running. We're in good shape. We have a license. We have an SSL certificate. We could enroll a device. I'm not going to go through actually enrolling a device now, but I can do things like adding a group and call it Bob's Devices. So I can add a smart group, and that smart group could be called All Windows Devices. And I can add, and I could pick OS platform if I want to and just say Windows. I could hit OK here and make a smart group that would add devices to it. So as you enroll more and more Windows devices, they'd show up here. You'll see this checkbox about fast smart group evaluation. That's new. And that basically smart groups evaluate by default every 10 minutes. So within 10 minutes, things would get added to this. Fast smart groups evaluate every minute. So if you needed for like an onboarding set of groups that would assign content to a device, you'd use that fast one. So there we go. Now I can make this all Windows devices. For file sets, I can, for instance, add an auto PKG file set, Chrome. Oh, so I wanted to show this off because authorization failed for auto package service. So I had pulled the license, so bad example there. I did that after I created the license. So you will need a real license. And Community Edition is free, so you could have that if you want to use auto PKG or winget. Let's see if winget would be happier with the fact that my license, yeah, winget at least is happier with the fact that I have a license that's deleted now. But AutoPKG makes Apple Mac OS installers that you can push out. Winget makes Windows installers that you can push out. So like if I wanted Google Chrome from Google, I can create file set, and now boom, Google Chrome's in here. Very easy. You don't have to make your own. And I'll probably make other videos about all the different kinds of file sets that you can make, because that could be an interesting topic. But I think at this point, I mean, the server's running. We're 45 minutes in, and even with my stumbling around going into preferences and, hitting OK on the mobile tab, everything you see just works. In Linode, I have the server running, and make sure to set up backups. Make sure periodically to do OS updates. We release FileWave versions about every quarter. So if you were to do that upgrade one-liner every quarter, you're probably okay-ish. But if you're more aggressive with patching, you can just connect and do apt update followed by apt upgrade, and you'll be able to keep your server up to date even between versions. so I didn't need any upgrades. But if I did those two commands, I would be good. And that won't take you to Debian 13. There's some other things you'd have to do to get to Debian 13, but that's a good thing because we don't yet support Debian 13. But we're close. I'm actually running a lab server that does run on Debian 13, so that should be reasonably close to figured out. So I think that we've shown, basically all the simple stuff. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we missed out on, um, that isn't platform specific or involving enrolling a device and what you see. Um, No, I'm gonna probably leave it here. I think everything worked and was great. Except for my stumbling on the setting that preference. So that would be the one thing where you would notice that, pretty easily that you were getting that error if you went to the Grafana dashboard, and some other things like content packs wouldn't work. So that's an easy enough thing to do, and maybe I'll speak to Dev about if there's a way to even make that better so somebody doesn't necessarily have to know to do that. But I don't think there's any avoiding it on initial server setup because it didn't have a name. All the placeholder stuff is localhost. So I think that this was pretty good. And thank you for if you watch this, and I hope it was helpful. And just know that I'm going to make some other videos about organizing clients, enrolling clients. I'll probably focus on specific platforms to make short videos, um, and maybe how to make different queries, which are really reports that can be useful. So look forward to that, and also managing OS updates. We actually already have a YouTube video posted about software updates in their current form. There's best practices on software updates that you'll see in YouTube. It's definitely worth watching if you have to patch Apple or Windows devices, because we do a pretty good job at that. And so thank you for attending if you did. And I'm going to just take a minute to show the QR codes that I mentioned. So if you want to join us on Discord, if you want to check out our YouTube channel, if you want to check out the event calendar, these QR codes should take you there. And please join Discord because you can ask things, and based on things people ask, maybe I'll make other videos. We also do have our training site, the Foundry, that has more formal training, but these quick YouTube videos should be also good for people because they're posted out on the public internet. So thank you and have a good day.